Hello everyone, today I'm going to show you an endgame called King and Pawn endgames. So in this position, black has a king and a pawn. If the pawn can reach the other side of the board, then black can win. So how does white draw this? If you look at the end, let's first play the engine moves. So the engine likes king to d1, and after h5, king to e2, king g6, king f3, and it doesn't matter what black plays. Even if he just tries to get the pawn up the board like this, it's still a draw. But in this position, you think h2 check in, and this is a draw because you don't play king f1 because that would just be terrible. If you did, then black can just queen with check. So king to h1, and this is a forced draw. It doesn't matter where you go. You have to hang on to the pawn, and so it can promote. The only way of doing that is king to h3, and this is stalemate because the king has no legal moves and it's not in check. Going to any other squares would be the exact same thing. You would just take the pawn. So then you would think that a pawn would be useless, but sometimes it can be useful. Let's I'm just gonna set up a position where the king and pawn will be winning. So just give me a second here. Okay. So in the next position, we will see a position where the king and pawn is going to be winning. So I'm gonna just put a king right here. And in this position, white is clearly winning. Well, why? Because now you can't just play like retreat the king and then just advance it yourself, because look, after this it's just a draw. I mean, king d6, if you just keep pushing it, you will eventually get blockaded, and yeah. So how do you win this, you ask? The thing is, you play king to e4. This is what is called opposition. You opposite your king, so it cannot come any further up the board. This is a very useful tactic. So after something like king d6, you play king f5. So the pawn can reach any of these squares without being captured. Now let's say king to e7, and you push it one square. That is very important. If you push it two squares, then it's just a draw after king to f7. Now he has the opposition, and this is just a draw. So what's very important here is you play e3. Now after king d7, king e5, king e7, and it looks like that you are getting opposite, but it doesn't matter. You can play king d5, you're still winning, or king f5, you're still winning. But for beginners, I recommend e4 as the easiest way of winning this. King f7. Now you take one step closer. King d6, and after something like king e8, you play king to e6. Again, opposition. If king to d8 and king to f8 is the same. let's see king to d8. Then this is still fine. But look what the computer says. The computer 1 second said king d6, but king f7 is the recommendation. So let's say king d7. You don't just push this. Well, I mean you can, but it's gonna get hard for beginners. So you can either play king f6 to like slow down a bit so it doesn't get too complicated, or if you are an advanced player, an intermediate player, you can play e5. Let's say king to d8, then you play e6, and the king cannot come any closer. So let's say like king c7, e7, king d7, and you can queen with check. This is easily winning. If you don't know how to win, I'll show you. So when the king moves, you want to be a knight's check away. That is exactly what you are in. But it's a force mate in 4. Can you spot it? Okay, for people who spot it, it is an incredible move. It is queen to b5. Because now after king to c7, king to e6, king to c8, and queen to d7 is checkmate, or queen to b8 is checkmate. So, but for beginners, you can just do yeah. So, like what I mean is, like you're a knight's check away, but some beginners say that, well, I'm still already a knight's check away from the king, so why can't? So if you're like those beginners, then you have to check the king so it cannot come any up the board. So let's say king to c5, and now you play queen to d7. So the king cannot come any closer up the board. So king c4, king and king c3 here. It's still a bit complicated, but you should achieve this if you are a good chess player, like an intermediate. Now black have a trick. He can play king to a2, and now you have to move your queen. Well, why can't? Well, if you just well, there's only one move that's a blunder in this position, and that wait. Well, the fastest checkmate in the position is king to d4, but you're absolutely correct if you just put your queen on the other side of the board. So let's say king b2 and king d3 here, check, and now the king is stuck. So the king a4 is the only move. Now we play king c4. Remember opposition. If you go to here, then it's just queen b5 checkmate. If he goes down the board, it's the same thing. Queen b3 checkmate or queen a1. So now I have a bonus for you guys. So in this position, wait, let me just set up the board again. Let me take this off, this. Just need a second. Just sweeping up all the pieces. Oops, sorry. Let's do that and that and this. Oops, not there. Okay, so I'm gonna load this into the computer, and it says white is kind of better, but this is still a draw. Well, the point is you have to play your rook but behind your passed pawn, like rook to e1. You can do that with like you can like move the king up all anywhere here, but it's still just a draw. Look, if you move the king, then you just have to go back, or else it's gonna be so much checks to face. But what if you say, what if the king is on? But what if king to f1? So now if rook f7, you have king g2, and if he keeps checking you like this, after check, you can attack him. So when he goes somewhere like rook to h2 to threaten to capture this pawn, or to play rook to g2 check, you can put your rook behind the passed pawn, but this is still a draw. Anything is a draw. Black can slowly keep checking, but it wouldn't help. I mean, only if black or white just blunders a rook or something, then it would not be a draw. So let's say black just keeps checking. Look, the computer says white is a bit better after king to f5 because he has a more active king, but it's still a draw. No matter if you just keep pushing. Well, although this endgame is very long, you should still learn this. So you know what to play as black, and you don't just resign. And now, if you play, well, e7 is the best move, but it's still a draw. You can just keep checking. Now you just play rook to g2, and there's no stopping taking the pawn. Let's just say king f4 takes. Let's say you think that black is gonna blunder, and you like play rook to g1. This is still a draw because the material is equal. And after a few more moves, there will be a forced trade like this. Okay, that is the end of this video. Make sure to like and subscribe for free Robux. See you in our next